This week in History of Hinduism, we are getting into the Upanishads, or renunciation. What you see here is a timeline of transformation from the Vedas to the Upanishads. The Vedas are a large body of religious texts originating in ancient South Asia. Composed in Vedic Sanskrit, these texts constituted the oldest layer of Sanskrit literature and a distinct religious category as well, Vedic religion, and they become the oldest scriptures of what later transforms into Hinduism. The Upanishads are a later series of Vedic Sanskrit texts from religious teachings and ideas still revered in Hinduism. They are what is called embedded texts. So in the four Vedas, you have Brahmanas and Aranyakas, and Upanishads are sort of layered on top of each four. So there's the core text where you have Brahmanas in each, and then the Aranyakas layer in each, and then the Upanishads layer on top of that, with the Upanishads being a sort of later expounding upon these earlier teachings. The Upanishads are the most recent part of the oldest scriptures in Hinduism, the Vedas. They deal with meditation, philosophy, and ontological knowledge, whereas the earlier parts of the Vedas deal with mantras, benedictions, rituals, and ceremonies, and sacrifices, as we have discussed. Among the most important literature in the history of South Asian religions and culture, the Upanishads played an important role in the development of spiritual ideas in ancient South Asia, marking a transition from this Vedic religion and ritualism to new ideas and eventually religious institutions. Of all Vedic literature, the Upanishads alone are widely known, and their central ideas are the spiritual core of what we now call Hinduism. They are commonly referred to as Vedanta, and Vedanta has been alternatively interpreted as the last chapters or the highest purpose of the Veda. The concepts of Brahman as the ultimate reality and Atman, the self, are central ideas to the Upanishads. The Muktika Upanishads list of 108 Upanishads groups the first 13 of these texts as Mukhya. 21 of them are known as Samanya Vedanta, 20 as Sannyasa, 14 as Vaishnava, tributes to Vishnu, so a discernible Hindu god referenced here, 12 as Shaiva, or specifically within the Shaiva tradition, devotion to Shiva, 8 as Shakta, specifically within the Shakti tradition, devotion to Shakti, 20 as Yoga, specifically within the Yoga tradition. These 108 Upanishads, as recorded in the Muktika, are described as the core religious texts of the Upanishads. But when we think about these various traditions, Vaishnava, Shaiva, and Shakta, at the time of their composal, may well have represented such distinct schools that they might have even been considered different religions, or at least different schools of teaching that were incredibly distinct. Nonetheless, the concepts of Brahman and Atman seem somewhat ubiquitous. The Muktika Upanishad is part of a dialogue between Rama, the king, and Hanuman, a part human deity monkey, where Rama proposes to teach the Vedanta, saying even by reading one verse of them, implying any Upanishad with devotion, then one gets the status of union with me, hard to get even by sages. Hanuman inquires about different kinds of liberation, mukti, hence the name of the Upanishad, the Muktika, to which Rama answers that the only real type of liberation is kaivalya. Here, Kaivalya is not necessarily moksha, although maybe it is moksha. To be more specific, Kaivalya is the ultimate goal of Raja Yoga, and it means solitude, detachment, and isolation simultaneously. It is a derivation from the term Kevala, which means alone or isolated. It is the isolation of Purusha from Prakriti. It is liberation from rebirth, in this sense, moksha, although this is a controversial interpretation due to the predominant view that it is impossible to separate or isolate Purusha from Prakriti and vice versa. Kaivalya Mukti is described by some of the Upanishads, such as the Muktika and the Kaivalya Upanishad, as the most superior form of moksha, which can grant liberation from both this life as Jivan Mukti and after death as Vidam Mukti. And it is also the essence of all the Upanishads in this definition. So the question then becomes, by what means is Kaivalya a kind of moksha got? By what means does someone achieve this? The Mandukya is enough. If knowledge is not got from it, then study the 10 Upanishads. Getting knowledge very soon, you will reach my abode, says Rama. If certainty is not even got then the study of the 32 Upanishads continues and stop there. If desiring moksha without the body, read 108 Upanishads, hear their order. And then the full list is given, which is how historians of religion have derived the list of the Upanishads and begun to study these various texts, including in translation.